welcome to episode 66 of the Life in General podcast. My name is Nick.
And I am Ian.
You are sickly Ian still.
Yeah. I'm in a brief moment of some nasal clarity.
Yeah? It's the first clarity you've had in years, Ian.
Oh, no. I have clarity every day, at least for 5 minutes or so.
Uh-huh. Sure. Why not?
Whatever. You don't know what goes on in my head.
Nothing at all.
Sometimes.
So any questions or comments, you can email us at lifeingeneralpod@gmail.com. I'm still not used to saying that. And if you didn't hear last episode, we're in the middle of doing some changeover with our website, so our website it'll be up through the end of April, but it might be down for a month or two after that. So
yep. Our
regular email address, I don't know if it's going to work, so I created a new one just in case.
Right.
Excuse me. You can check us out on Twitter at LIGPod. We're on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, Google Podcast, Spotify. We were on TuneIn Radio, but last time I looked on there, I don't think I was able to find our podcast. So I'm not sure what's going on.
I'll look into it because I've got TuneIn on my phone too, so I'll check it out.
So yeah, we're just about everywhere. So what's going on, Ian?
I'm still sick.
Your story of your life.
Well, yeah.
At least story of your life this year.
So far, yeah, it's been a rough year on me. I think it has a lot to do with...
Rough year on you? Tried to be Donald Trump. Ooh. Anyway, but he was completely exonerated though, so it's it's not much of a story there.
Was he though? Was he really?
Well, as far as we know, but
the guy that he personally handpicked to review the report says that he was exonerated, but everyone else is saying, nah,
actually, no. The Attorney General said he wasn't exonerated, but there was no proof that there was collusion found in it. But
it was still his reading, his interpretation.
But I do find it funny that he actually said that the president was not exonerated in the memo that he sent Congress. Right. But that's not what the president and half of Congress is saying.
Right. Or Fox News.
Well, it's all part of the same wing.
Yeah. Yeah, they all just feed off of each other's rhetoric.
For the most part.
Yeah. You're coughing. You're sick now.
You know what, though? I have been sick for a while. So, yeah, our topic today is actually about... We're going to... Actually, I think this is the most discussed topic on our podcast.
Which is weird, because...
Marijuana legalization in Michigan. Yeah, because...
Because I honestly don't really smoke.
And neither do I.
I
mean, occasionally.
Very occasionally.
Very occasionally.
Me, yeah.
I smoke like an ounce a year, if that.
I don't even do that. I actually haven't smoked in almost a year. Actually, over a year.
Yeah, I mean, I do very infrequently.
Yeah.
You know what, though? It's probably because I'm just so incredibly busy.
Yeah. I'm already tired. I don't need any help there.
I used to say all the time, if I wanted to be, tired and hungry, I'd just work more and eat less. But.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just, it's very rare, very, very rare for me.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about where marijuana legalization is at currently in the state of Michigan.
Which, we're at getting to the 6 month point.
Yeah,
since
pretty
it
much
was voted
almost
in the state of Michigan.
Yeah, it was November, so it
was November 7th, and by the time this is released, it'll be over 6 months.
No, it won't.
This
would be
November to April is 6 months.
Well, this episode will be out April 21st.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It'll be over 6 months. November 7th to April 7th is 6 months.
So, yeah. So I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought there for a second. So yeah, it was medicinal marijuana was actually legalized in Michigan in 2008.
Right.
Which I wasn't here when all that happened. Was I? No, I was already living in Tennessee at that point. I moved in April of 2008.
Right. And that was voted
in November.
Yeah.
So since it was legal, the recreational pot was legalized in Michigan in November. Since then, there has been over 400 communities in the state of Michigan that have either said they won't allow dispensaries, recreational dispensaries in their jurisdiction,
Right.
or have passed legislation outlawing it.
Which is weird because doesn't that go against the whole like democratic process?
That's kind of what I'm getting at. Is people should really be pissed about this, and I don't. And I'm going to run down some of the places where it has been banned.
Okay.
And this is just the major cities. Now, granted, if you don't live in southeastern Michigan, some of these places, you're not going to know where a lot of these places are.
Right. Well, if you live anywhere, even in Michigan, some of them might not.
No, you should know where all these places are.
Okay.
Grass Lake. There's parts of Grand Rapids that have outlawed it. Adrian, Blissfield, Clinton, Tecumseh, Brighton, Fowlerville, Howell, that's surprising. Pinckney, Mackinac Island. You won't be able to buy pot up there, I guess, but which I guess makes sense here on the island, but whatever.
Right.
I think Mackinac City has actually outlawed it also. Sterling Heights, Dundee, of course. Monroe, Bloomfield Township, Birmingham, Milford, Northville, Novi, Rochester Hills, Royal Oak, Troy, West Bloomfield, Birch Run, Frankenmuth, Saginaw, St. Clair, Manchester, Saline, Allen Park, Belleville, Canton, Dearborn, Flat Rock, Grosse Pointe, Harper Woods, Livonia, Plymouth, Sumter Township, Van Buren Township, Westland, Woodhaven, Wyandotte, and just last week, Ypsilanti Township also passed a measure saying...
So basically everywhere around us.
And that's just...
You basically have to go to Detroit to get weed, which is
pretty
what
much,
it was when it was illegal.
And that's kind of what I'm getting at, is for the most part, it's going to be Detroit area, it's going to be Ann Arbor, Flint, and Lansing.
Right.
Pretty much the rest of the state has said they won't allow it.
Right.
But here's the thing, and this is why people should be really pissed off about it. Not only did a majority of the state of Michigan vote to legalize recreational marijuana, and now you've got, sorry to say it, majority Republican-run cities and townships that are saying, well, we're not going to allow it here. So you voted it for one way, and you've got a party that's not allowing it to go through.
Right.
And they talked about doing this before. So leading up to the vote, pretty much everyone knew it was going to pass. So there was discussion in Lansing what to do about it.
Right.
And at one point they had discussed trying to pass it
without the vote. Just do a
legislation. Legislatively pass a bill.
Right.
Legalizing it. So then all that they would need after the election would be a simple majority vote to overturn what they had passed.
Right. Basically to keep a lot of Democrats or liberals home from the polls.
Yes. And also to keep a lot of donors happy.
Right.
Because there's, not only do you have tobacco companies against legalization, you've got pharmaceutical companies, which are big in the state of Michigan,
right,
against recreational.
Not to mention your advocacy groups, your Christian groups, your parent groups, things like that, who are against it.
Yeah, but the big money is
right.
Is
those are
pharmaceutical
money.
companies.
Those aren't money, but those companies. Those two groups are very, very well established within the Republican Party as well, because it's the the moral voters.
But as you know, money talks.
Oh, of course.
And you know where the money comes
from. That's
from.
what I'm saying, though.
That's why I say about
the moral voters don't get anywhere unless the money's there. Which, yeah.
So you've got a majority of the state of Michigan. I wouldn't say majority. It's well over a quarter of the state of Michigan that said no. Even though it's been passed, we're not going to allow it here.
Right.
And the thing you have to remember is, if you live in one of these places that have said no, you're not going to be receiving any of the tax money that comes from recreational sales.
Right.
And I think ultimately what this all comes down to is trying to stop the spread of recreational marijuana from the state of Michigan. Because of other states, Wisconsin's talking about legalizing it also. But if legalization advocacy groups in other states look at the state of Michigan, because right now we're the only Midwestern state that's legalized recreational so far. And if you're able to stunt and limit the tax dollars in the state,
it doesn't look as good.
It doesn't look as good.
Right. And my biggest problem with it is the idea that I understand that we have a representative government, but if a majority votes for something, whether you agree with it or not, as a representative, you're supposed to represent those views, and that is not. And I mean, it's on both sides, but specifically a Republican thing. Republicans have continuously, over the last 15 years, gone against the majority of the country.
Well, they
went against it with gay marriage. They're going against it with weed legalization. They're going against it with health care.
Well,
everything.
Look at what they've already done since the election last year with regards to minimum wage.
Right.
So minimum wage was going to be on the ballot. And then Governor Snyder at the time and the Republican legislature in the state saw the groundswell of support that measure had.
Right.
When you talk about raising minimum wage, it's wildly popular on both sides of the aisle as far as population-wise.
Right.
It's not with politicians.
No, right.
But if you go to middle of nowhere, Republicanville, they're in favor of the minimum wage
because it affects them.
Right. It directly affects them. So the state of Michigan saw the support it had. So it preemptively raised the minimum wage.
Right.
And then a week after the election, it was in their lame duck session last year, before the new state Congress came in. They went ahead and overturned what they had already passed,
right?
Just to keep it off the ballot. So that's the kind of tricks, and I know we've talked about it on the show before.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of tricks and tactics that they've done, and since they weren't able to do that preemptively, they're doing the same thing, but they're going about it a different way,
right?
And I mean, I guess so. If you're someone that wants to open a dispensary, a recreational dispensary in Michigan, I guess you would have to sue the township.
Well, I don't know how. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know what the legality.
I mean, because even though it's legalized in the state of Michigan, it's up to each individual township and city to have its own way of regulating business.
Right.
So they're just finding a new creative way to regulate it out of existence.
I guess it depends, because I mean, I guess the same thing happens with well, not so much anymore because it's pretty much free online, but like porn stores and stuff, or adult novelty stores.
Yeah.
It's perfectly legal to sell those products to consenting adults, but there's a lot of cities and townships that won't allow those types of establishments in their town, and no one really says anything about it because the kind of what it is.
Yeah.
But with weed specifically, it's, I don't know. I guess we'd probably have to look at how things happened with prohibition. When was it the 23rd Amendment that abolished prohibition?
One of those.
Whatever it was, 16th, whatever it was. It'd be curious to look back and see how that was handled in terms of individual cities, individual states, because there's still dry counties to this day.
Oh yeah.
So
living in Tennessee, I lived by several of them.
Right. So
actually, the Jack Daniel's distillery is actually in a dry county in Tennessee.
So it seems to me like it's one of those things that, I guess the difference is that wasn't, the amendment had to be passed through Congress, the Senate, whereas this was voted on by the people.
Yeah.
So that might be the determining difference. But it's going to be up to the people who live in those counties to cast their vote again.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, if you voted for it,
but here's the thing, though,
on the state level, you're going to have to vote for it on a local level, because otherwise, I think every county is going to have the right to do that.
But here's the thing, though, is if you live in one of the cities or townships that I mentioned, are you even aware of it? Are you aware that?
Well, they will be when they don't see any stores showing up, and they have to drive to Detroit or Ann Arbor.
But here's the thing: a lot of people,
if they're
a majority of the people that don't smoke pot are still going to not smoke pot,
right?
But they're going to look at it and they're going to say, "Well, shit, we passed it in Michigan, even if they voted for it. We passed it in Michigan. Well, why isn't Monroe? Why I don't see any extra money. Why did we pass this?" Right. Not knowing that not knowing that maybe Monroe opted out of having dispensaries. But even if they did, they might not know that because of they opted out, it means they don't get any money from it.
Right. Well, the same thing happened with the Affordable Care Act. All across the country.
As far as
states opting out of it and, against the will of the people. And people still saw it as a blight.
Well, they didn't opt out of the.
They opted out getting the.
They opted out of the website.
Well, that and the financial aid that came with it.
Yeah.
So in states where
that was just a infrastructure issue.
Yeah, but if they're not getting the money for it, they can't offer the same deals. Louisiana was one of those states. Bobby Jindal opted out of it. He said he didn't want any of the Obamacare money. But he's saying I don't want any money for my people, for the people that I'm representing. Yeah. So it's the same thing. It's a Republican thing, but it's ultimately going to have to be again. It's like anything else. The gay marriage thing, that was decided. We're still fighting that fight.
Yeah.
Gay couples being able to adopt. That's a big thing now in several states too.
Yep.
So these are things that we thought were already covered. We already took care of this, and Republicans are still, Roe v. Wade was in 1973. We're still having the abortion fight.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean? It's never ending.
Well, the abortion fight's a little different
in a sense, but Roe v. Wade was very clear. But Roe v. Wade isn't legislation.
Yeah. So I mean, and looking at the list of the over 400 cities and townships, the sad thing is a vast majority of them
are white.
No.
You mentioned a lot of white cities. Very white cities.
Most cities in Michigan are white.
I know, but I'm pointing out the vast majority. There were very few.
Well, what I was getting at was a vast majority of them are poorer cities that need the tax revenue.
Right.
That could really use the tax revenue. Monroe definitely could use the tax revenue.
Right. Yeah, there's no shortage of meth in Monroe.
As my wife teaches in Monroe, right. So I mean, I know firsthand the infrastructure issues, especially in the school districts that they have out there. So I mean, it could definitely be used. But I guess the other thing is, and I wasn't able to really find anywhere online where it talked about what exactly they're going to do with the tax revenue.
Well, I mean, I would imagine.
I would assume it's just going to go in the general fund, but
which would help with a lot of things, roads, all that other stuff.
It helps with things that I don't put a lot of faith in state politicians.
Well, I don't think you should.
No, but so I mean, when you say things like, we're going to put it in the general fund, to me that sounds like I'm going to put it in my general pocket. Is what it sounds like to me. But and as far as going to the tax revenue part of it, if you look at, I saw the numbers just recently. They came out for a lot of the states that sold recreational marijuana last year.
Uh-huh.
Massachusetts in 2018, their tax revenue was $5.2 million.
Okay.
But that's a big but. The number is low because although it was recreational pot was legalized in Massachusetts in 2016, it wasn't able to begin being sold until November of last year.
Okay.
So basically, in 2 months, the state got $5.2 million in tax revenue
in 2 months. Right. Well, Colorado,
and that number's going to go up drastically this year.
Of course, and Colorado benefited greatly. I'd be curious to see how many counties and cities opted out in Colorado.
I don't know.
It's a bigger city. It's a bigger state. I think.
Well, Michigan's a bigger state than.
But with population, but I don't think square miles, right?
I believe Michigan is the second largest state in the United States to legalize recreational marijuana, behind California.
Okay. Still, it's a bigger state than
Massachusetts. Well, I guess that can't be true because Alaska legalized it, and Alaska is the largest state in the United States. So
okay, yeah, but I think still, I guess maybe Michigan must be 3 too. Or Alaska maybe, doesn't have anywhere near.
No, that's true. They got a lot of polar bears, I guess. But polar bears smoking pot. But anyway, speaking of Alaska, their tax revenue was $11 million for last year.
Right. Just on weed?
Just for recreational pot. Nevada was $69.8 million. Oregon was $94.4 million. And then there's a big jump to Colorado, which had $266.6 million in tax revenue.
Right.
Last year.
Just from marijuana.
California had $300 million. And Washington State had the highest at $319 million.
Right.
In tax
that could go a long way for helping schools and roads.
Do you think Michigan could use an extra $319 million? Yeah. If you drive down 23 or 94 or 96.
Or just any road in the state of Michigan.
We could use a couple of extra $100 million.
Absolutely.
Hell, they're talking about raising our gas, 45 cents a gallon?
Whatever, I don't know. I don't pay attention.
To pay for it? I mean, so yeah, we could definitely use the money. But then again, like I said before, the big question is, what are you going to do with that extra several $100 million?
Right.
Which is what it'll be. I mean, so if you look at the first licensed dispensaries opened in Michigan November 1st of last year, right? So in what?
December 1st.
November 1st.
The vote wasn't until November 7th.
But it was, these are strictly recreational. No, these are strictly medicinal licenses because no one, they won't, the state of Michigan won't be issuing any recreational licenses until next year.
Gotcha.
So these are only medicinal licenses. So the first licenses were sent out or received whenever. They went into effect November 1st. So you're talking 5 or 6 months, right? Since November 1st, the legal dispensaries have sold more than $42 million worth of marijuana.
Right. And
that sounds like a lot when you consider the last number I saw from last month. The numbers were from last month. There's only 54 licensed medical marijuana dispensaries in Michigan.
Right.
So in 54 dispensaries, they sold $42 million worth of pot.
Right.
Since November of last year. I mean, that's a big fucking number.
That's huge, yeah.
And the average retail cost per ounce is about $213.
Right.
And that $42 million has translated to more than $3.5 million in total tax revenue so far. And that's a 6% sales tax, and there's a 3% excise tax.
Right.
So once we finally open up and start selling this stuff recreational across the state,
right,
not just in 5 or 6 large areas, I mean, you're talking. I really think we could be on that, on that high
$200 to $400
million a year in tax revenue,
right?
And like I said before, that's a huge fucking number.
It is, but you're dealing with people who are fiscally conservative only up to the point where it affects their pocketbooks.
And I think a lot of people are like that, though, Ian. We've had this conversation. I've had that conversation with you.
I'm not saying that's what I'm talking. Yes, you're absolutely right. But it's come to the point where the politicians are, specifically the Republican ones, are just blatantly unconcerned with everyone other than the rich.
Yeah.
Weed doesn't affect the rich. It's not a rich man's drug. I think cocaine still is.
It probably is. Yeah. cocaine or pills?
Or pills, yeah, specifically, yeah. If it was a drug of choice amongst the billionaires, we wouldn't be dealing with this.
Yeah. You know, when you mention things like that, though, it kind of makes me think of, and I don't know why, it just kind of popped into my head, and this is kind of off topic. This is not, it's really off topic, is climate change.
Right.
You know, so every year for the past X amount of years, the world has been warmer. Like every year we break the record for... but there's still a lot of people out there that deny... I wouldn't say deny climate change exists, but deny the role that humans play in it. You know, roughly half of the U.S. Congress. But even with the side of Congress that does admit that it's a problem, you know, there's, I don't remember and I should have looked it up. I should have wrote it down. I don't remember the name of it. But there's a company that they created this big machine.
Uh-huh.
And what this machine does is it collects all the CO2 in the air and recycles it.
Right.
So it's collecting CO2. When you hear politicians out there talk about the, you know, and the reason that it really kind of stood out to me was I remember was the early 2000s. Al Gore was there was this big announcement. It was whatever global climate change organization he was working with at the time, talking about how by 2014 all the ice caps would be melted. Well, obviously that didn't happen, and it's always been, and that's been kind of the case since the 80s. How, oh well, by year X this is going to happen. Oh, well, we get to that point. Oh well, now it's, you know, 5 or 8 years later. It's always pushing the ball down the field.
Right.
But you hear all these politicians that talk about and say that climate change exists and that we play a large role in it, which I think we do.
Absolutely.
But I don't hear any of them, at least even discussing things like this machine. Or things like that, man-made objects that are able to clean CO2 emissions out of the air. I mean, it's always Green New Deals and things like that, which they know they're not going to be able to pass. So are they realistic about or true in their intentions? Or is it all just lip service?
I think it's all just talk. They don't really care.
They don't give a shit.
They have no intention of doing
anything about it. Even with the Democrats, they don't give a shit unless their donors care.
Democrats, they do give a shit, but they pay too much attention to their donors, and they pay too much attention to, or not enough attention to actually winning elections. They're terrible at winning elections.
But I think that's one of the reasons why, is because I think a lot of people see through the bullshit.
Right. I mean, that's my biggest problem with Nancy Pelosi. I don't know what kind of a person she is personally, but all I see is a corporate dick sucker. That's all I see from her.
It's a really poor phrase. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but it's
ass kisser.
That's
dick a bad liquor.
Ass kiss is probably a more.
Yeah, when they say a politician is in their pocket, if that was
if you looked up in the dictionary, you'd have a picture of Nancy Pelosi.
Yes.
I think a lot of people.
As much as she rallies on about climate change and healthcare, affordable healthcare, you're never going to get that from her or her ilk of Democrat, which sucks because even though it might be a small proportion of Democrats, how they react is what Republicans run their entire platforms on. So if it's not going to benefit the corporations, Republicans will just all stand out and not do anything. And then you guys still have a segment of the Democrats who are owned by these people, and they say they want to, but they don't.
Yeah. I guess it's just, I don't see anyone out there that's proposing anything of substance to me.
No,
and we did a whole episode on the Green New Deal, and I mean, yeah, I think some of it's good.
The vast majority of it's really good.
I think a lot of it's kind of bullshit though, and I think a lot of it's kind of lip service, and it's just like pie in the sky shit that
Well, the
thing is, if you want to enact climate change regulation, you first need to win fucking elections.
Exactly.
And I'm sorry, by trotting out there with the Green New Deal and this big pie in the sky, grand plan, you're not going to win with that. You've got to be able to go out and connect with people on why we need to get away from fossil fuels and move to renewable energies. And I don't know, and this I'm just thinking off the top of my head here. Would a Democrat have better luck in Iowa, in Nebraska, if they started talking more about not necessarily climate change, but when they talk about fossil fuels and say, look, why are we allowing Middle Eastern companies to have such a huge say in
everything?
Exactly. Every time you go fill up your pickup truck or your Ford Explorer or whatever it is.
That was a viable question.
Hold on. Okay. When every time you Joe whoever put gas in your vehicle, you're help funding terrorism. So as a way to
terrorism, misogyny, homophobia, everything.
Well, they don't care about, for the most part, homophobia or misogyny.
True.
What they do care about terrorism.
Right.
So every time you buy gasoline, you are funding terrorism. There's no gray area there. So why not try to label it that way and say, look, why don't we, if you want to get rid of everything bad that happens in the Middle East, cut the head off the snake. Let's move away from fossil fuels. Let's move away from things that's going to provide them money.
Right.
Because that's what they need. ISIS, without oil money, doesn't exist.
Well, according to Trump, it doesn't exist anymore anyway. He defeated it.
Terrorist groups in general in the Middle East.
I'm just pointing out.
Without oil money, they don't exist.
I know that. You know that. They know that. But again, it's not in their financial, personal interest to do anything.
But that's what I'm saying. Why can't someone go out there with a message like that? Because what's more likely? Are you more likely to win over a Republican or a moderate with that message, or are you more willing to win them over with the argument
in a reasonable world?
Hold on, that the ice caps are melting, that Florida and California and the coasts are going to flood with water, and we're all going to die in 15 years. What's the most likely the argument that's going to work?
For me, what I would be pushing would be the green jobs. Not the Green New Deal. I'm just the green jobs. That, to me, that should be a clincher.
But it's not going to be.
No, not wholeheartedly, but there's got to be something there. Because you're not going to go out there and convince Billy Bob. And
no offense to Billy Bobs out there.
Whatever. You're not going to convince Billy Bob, who has worked on a farm his whole life, or in a factory his whole life, and for in many cases for little money. You're not going to convince him to even give a shit about climate change unless you can offer him something better than working on the farm, working in the factory. Or the coal miner, who's 10th generation coal miner. You're not going to convince him to say, okay, coal is a bad idea, without giving him an alternative that's even better.
You're not going to convince those people.
They have to, though.
No, because here's the thing. It's the coal miner, the farmer, the whatever. Those are jobs that are ingrained in their society that they live in.
Right. Societies can change,
but what I'm
saying,
with the right people. What I'm saying though is you're never going to be able to go into a coal mining town in West Virginia and say, look, this stuff's killing everybody.
Yeah.
So we're gonna give you new, better jobs, because they're gonna look at it as you selling them a line of bullshit. And for a certain percentage of them, It's true.
Fair enough.
So, I think that's what I'm saying is if you want to enact better legislation, politicians need to start looking at arguments from different angles.
Right.
Instead of saying, look, this campaign works in Florida, California, and New York, so I'm going to use then Iowa, Minnesota, and Nebraska.
Right.
Because it doesn't work like that. And your argument, the message needs to change, from city to city in the same state.
Yeah, but once you start changing your message, people then they're
it's not changing the message; it's changing the angle that you're looking at it.
We live in a society that is guided by sound bites and minimal semantics. So you get Bernie Sanders. He goes to New York. He's going to talk about climate change. He's going to talk about healthcare. And he goes to Nebraska. He's going to talk about or West Virginia. He's going to talk about coal mining and cleaning up the air and cleaning up everything else and going with green jobs. All you're going to get is the Republican side saying Bernie doesn't have a platform. He's all over the place. Because you have to admit...
No, but here's the thing.
You have to admit the Republicans control the narrative in this country,
Ian,
almost 100%.
What I'm saying is you can take the same message everywhere. But...
They're still going to nitpick the
what you have to do is you have to change the way you're looking at it. Yeah, in New York, you can talk about, climate change, killing the environment and the rising sea, rising water levels in the ocean and things like that. But in more traditional Republican areas, you're going to have to look at it a different way. You're going to have to present it in a different way. The same message, but in a different way. And they don't fucking do that.
No, they don't. But we also, in their defense...
Because you can't go into coal mining West Virginia and talk about them losing their jobs, because it's not going to win, ever.
I don't know who would do that. I'm not suggesting...
But that's what they do. That's exactly what they do.
What they do is...
They go into West Virginia and they say, we're going to get you better paying jobs. And they say, no, you're a fucking politician. You're full of shit. You're going to get rid of our industry and going to leave us with nothing.
Well, that's when you say, you're not going to lose your job until that other industry is ready to take you.
Okay, they can say that, but show me a time...
What else is there to say?
Show me a time in which they've done it.
Then suggest to me what should be said, because as far as I'm concerned, there isn't anything else to say. If you're a rational human being and you say, okay, there's two options. You got the death option and the life option.
You have to present different...
So what you're saying is the Democrats need to find something that has absolutely nothing to do with the platform.
What they need to do is
the Republicans.
They need to be able to connect with the people in the area.
Well, you're just saying the same thing over and over again. You're not telling me what it is they should be saying.
Because I don't know. But that's the whole thing.
I'm suggesting that they need to push. I don't care how they say it. They need to push that they are going to have jobs. They are going to get better jobs.
That is never going to work, though.
Then there is nothing else.
Pushing that angle is never going to work.
Unless the Democrats want to pick up guns.
They're going to have to find a different reason for them to give up coal mining jobs.
There are no other reasons. There are no other reasons. We were telling them they're going to live longer. We're telling them they're going to make more money. We're telling them they're going to have better, more sustainable jobs. And it doesn't work.
You're talking about areas which a particular job is ingrained in what they are.
So what you're saying is we're never going to get those people, period.
Unless you find a different...
There is no other angle.
There's got to be. There's got to be a different angle.
Okay. If you can convince the West Virginia miners that coal mining is gay... You could probably win them over that. Or by coal mining, you're supporting people who want to take away your guns. Then you'll get them.
But that's what I'm saying. There's got to be some other way too.
There is no other way. Because we're human, we're adults, and there is good things and there are bad things. And as adults, we should be able to recognize the difference, and we apparently can't.
What I'm saying, though, is, and I've been through some of these areas. You're not going to ever be able to convince them to give up their jobs and give up their livelihood, because that's who they are.
Who in the world could you convince to give that stuff up? If someone came up to me and said, I'm going to take away all your job, your income, everything, and that doesn't give me something to support to say, well, I'm going to replace it with this, I wouldn't let them do it either. But the problem is those people have always, for the most part, voted to the right, and they believe...
Not always, but...
Typically. You understand when I say generalization, I'm not generalizing intentionally. It's pretty accurate. Look at the numbers. Trump won West Virginia.
Okay.
That's what I'm just saying.
They do have a Democratic senator, but it's...
My point is that
they've had Democratic governors, but
unless you want to go down that other route and start equating, like the Republicans do, equating the things that are good for people with things that they hate, like healthcare. They're really good at that. Do you think anyone in the South specifically who benefited from the Affordable Care Act liked it? At least in the idea. No. My point is, listen.
I know
you keep interrupting me. If I wasn't so sick, I would be screaming right now.
You asked a question, I answered it.
You're not letting me finish.
Oh, okay.
So,
dear, I'll sit back. You let me know when you're finished.
Okay. When the Affordable Care Act went into effect, Bill Maher sent what's her name, documentary filmmaker, down to the South, and she went around and talked to all these people who were benefiting from it, and not a one of them would admit that they would vote. They liked it. They could say, "No, I hate it." Well, if you don't have it, you'll lose your health care. That's Obama taking away my health care, because Republicans control the narrative in this country. So my biggest point in all of this, and I've been trying to say, and it irritates me, because this is the one thing that I've gotten to the point now where I'm tired of the bickering. I'm tired of the arguing. Unless you're absolutely right, the narrative has to work for them. But if that doesn't work, if the truth of the matter does not work for them, then what's the alternative? And if you can't present an alternative, there is no alternative. Until someone comes up with one, there is none. So bitching about it makes no fucking difference. We might as well just let them be. If you want Democrats to win in West Virginia, we don't want to win over the coal miners to a green plan. There is nothing else you can give them other than the truth, short of changing the narrative the way the Republicans do and making it evil.
So
find something in the Bible that says coal mining is bad. You'll win them over. Tell them it's homosexual, and you'll win them over. That's it. Or tell them the truth and hope that the rationality...
All right, let me go back to something you covered a couple minutes ago, and I was trying to get to.
Yeah.
I know people in Tennessee, several, not a lot, a couple people, that their family members, their children, their adult-ish children, and their grandchildren are on state insurance plans. And they still rail against Obamacare.
Exactly, that's my point.
And that's what the whole when you get on me for interrupting you, I was trying to agree with you.
Okay. But you kept doing it before that. It was kind of building up, so.
But anyway, like I was getting back to though, is if you know that an argument isn't going to work against a particular area, try to find a different way to go about it. And that's what all I'm trying to get to is because Democrats historically don't fucking do that.
Right.
And that's why they lose a lot of different hell. You know, you look at if you look at the states that Hillary Clinton lost in 2016, a vast majority of those states she never even went to.
Right. No.
Why?
You're right.
Why? Because her argument wasn't going to work there, so she wasn't even going to try.
I guess what I'm trying to say is you're pointing out that these states require a new argument. Republicans aren't offering an argument. They
are.
They do.
They're
all they do.
They're pushing the status quo is what they're doing.
Yes, but they're never offering alternatives. They're not saying
because they don't need to because they're pushing what is already there.
That's my point. Where Democrats don't change the narrative. That's what you're saying. They're not changing the narrative for those people. The Republicans don't have a narrative other than if they believe this or want this, all they do is devalue the other side's argument. They don't offer a fresher argument. They just make it bad.
You know why they do that?
Because it works.
Because it works.
Exactly.
Because the Democrats won't change.
So what you're saying is, if Democrats can't, if they can't, and it starts where they have to actually go and make the argument.
Yes.
You're absolutely right. But if you know, you're probably right. If you know that those arguments, the arguments from fact, aren't going to work, then the only other alternative is for them to do the same thing the Republicans are doing.
And kind of bringing it all back to the beginning part of this whole segue, this whole side topic, is I see now. Granted, there haven't been any debates or anything at this point, but the people I see at the top of all the polls right now are the same people that spout the same stupid bullshit year after year.
Right.
The people I see that have different ideas and are trying to do it a different way are never going to fucking win.
You're preaching to the choir.
And that's my whole kind of issue with the
So what do we do? Again, that's
a huge fucking question.
Because this is what my friend Avery, who I get into these arguments with too, and the screaming matches as well, because he constantly will say, if you're a corporatist Democrat, I will not vote for you. He would vote for Trump over most of the candidates on that are applying for the job.
That's a problem with the country.
That's the problem with the country. But when I say, what is the alternative? Where are your alternative ideas? He's got plenty of... What was that? That was my phone, sorry. He's got plenty of ideas for where he wants to go, but he has no ideas on how to make it happen, how to convince people. He stops just short of saying this, and it just drives me nuts. So, Avery, if you're listening, I'm calling you out. He stops just short of offering new ideas rather than saying, I'm not going to do this, or we shouldn't do this. That's fine. But if you're not going to offer a fresher alternative, you need to shut up about it. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't do us any good. We're in the position we're in. This country is in the position it is in because we got to the point where we were always constantly bitching and never offering fresher ideas that will work.
Yeah.
That's why we're in a problem. I've gotten to the point now where I was talking to you about it before off air. I don't want to have the arguments with people on Facebook. But every day I see something and I've literally got to hold myself back from saying the things I want to say because I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. And I've even tried to work it where if I word it this way, it's less argumentative, it's less confrontational, but it doesn't work unless I can truly convince them that what I'm saying is going to work. And I don't know if it'll work. But that's where I'm trying to come from. If I'm going to talk to these people, I want to be able to offer them a better alternative.
Yeah.
Or at least a rational idea for why I'm disagreeing with them instead of yelling at them. And no one else is doing that. And unless I can do that, I don't talk to them. Calling out Hillary Clinton for not going down south is a perfect thing to do because there's no consequences to us to say she was wrong. But to say that we're never going to convince the coal miners that the green jobs are better unless we change what we say.
No. What I'm saying is it's not, you're still going to say the same thing. You just have to be able to connect to them in a different way.
Well, showing up would be a good start.
Yeah.
Basically what I was saying, though, is if you can go down there and, yes, say it in a way that relates to them. Say it in a way that is, I don't want to say on their level because that's condescending, but
very much so.
Explain it to them in a way that is factual and offer them the alternatives, if that doesn't work, which you said it probably wouldn't, then nothing will.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, I wouldn't go as far as saying that.
I'm going to go as far as saying that because I've noticed
when you have somebody. See, and that was kind of as much as all the flaws that Bill Clinton had. Bill Clinton was able to connect with people in a way that I don't think a Democrat has since.
Okay.
Even for as great of a speaker as President Obama was, I don't think he was able to connect to people like Bill Clinton was. I think Bill Clinton would be somebody that would be able to go into, obviously not now, but in 92, would be able to go into a place like West Virginia or Iowa and have a frank discussion with society in those areas on what they needed to do to change.
Do you think it was because Obama was black, or do you think it was because he used words with multiple syllables?
No, I think it's because President Obama wasn't able to connect to people like that. I mean, and now I'm not saying just people in West Virginia. I mean, people in general across the country.
Are you kidding? He's one of the best orators that we've had.
And that's why I said outside
ever.
And that's why I said taking his but actually physically being in areas and connecting with people. He was good at it. He wasn't as good as Bill Clinton was.
Then you know what? Right there. That's the problem right there. Because people don't want truth. They don't want intelligence. They want showmanship.
No, they want people that
connecting. Look, Nick, any politician can go and kiss a baby.
It's not.
I'm not saying Bill Clinton didn't do it good.
Donald Trump won 2016 because he was able to connect with people. Hillary Clinton lost because he couldn't.
Connected with people on subjects that no one else will talk about, like supporting white supremacy, calling Hillary Clinton out.
Outside all that, regardless of what he was saying,
what's he connecting with? He everything he said about helping the poor people, he's gone against.
Okay,
but he doesn't talk about that. Connecting with people, that's what I'm talking about. People want show. They don't want truth.
People want authenticity.
Truth is all I'm asking.
People want authenticity. Hillary Clinton was not authentic. I'm sorry.
But Donald Trump couldn't say more than 3 sentences without 3 fucking lies. So what's more authentic? People don't want truth. That's just the simple fact of the matter. We're all fucking doomed.
Well,
nobody wants truth.
Truth and authenticity aren't always the same.
Very true. But truth is that's the guiding principle we should be looking for. There are things that are true and there are things that are not true. Truth, coal is killing us, green jobs won't.
But you're more likely to be able to get through that conversation if you are able to connect with people.
That's my point right there.
That's part of being a politician. If you're a
politician,
that's why Al Gore lost in 2000. Is because he was a fucking robot.
What you're saying is we're all children, and we need people to spoon feed us our food, making airplane noises.
To a certain extent,
then we're
yes.
fucking doomed. Because I'm a fucking adult.
Yes.
Tell me the truth. I'll make a decision.
People don't want to hear the truth, Ian.
Then we're doomed. We had
this conversation when we talked about single payer health care. And I started talking to you about the cost of it. Right. And your response was, well, I don't want to pay for that.
I understand that.
It's the same thing. I was having a frank conversation.
I don't want to pay for it, but I understand the rational thought behind it.
But it's the same thing. It's the same. It's always going to be that kind of argument.
The argument is fine. But disregarding the facts are healthcare, universal healthcare is better for this country, whether it costs me more or not. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. It's better. That's truth. Truth is Americans will be healthier and happier with it.
Okay.
Whether I like paying for it or not is irrelevant. Same with coal. But if Democrats are going to have to go and, like I said, spoon feed this idea, making airplane noises, Donald Trump isn't doing that. He's saying more jobs for Americans, and then he's cutting billionaire taxes.
Okay.
That's all he's doing. He's actually hurting jobs.
To a certain extent, yeah.
every economist in the country is saying we're destined for a massive recession because of his actions.
We've been saying that for, I don't know, the last 8 years anyway. But
no, we were in a recession 8 years ago. We were just getting out of a recession 8 years ago.
It's 2019? So yeah, since 2012.
We weren't even out of the recession in 2018. Barely.
Yes, we were.
2 years maybe. 2-3 years tops.
Okay. But still, since then, that's all I've heard is, well, another one's coming.
Well, because another one is coming. But
that's always, and that kind of goes back to the beginning of the conversation where it was, 2014, right. we were going to have no polar ice caps by 2014. And then it's, now it's 2020.
Why are we even arguing this? That's my point. Why are we even arguing? Because there's no answer. It's done.
There is none.
There is no fucking answer. We are just doomed. We're fucking doomed.
To a certain extent.
Because, and I'm going to say it, because we much rather hear things that sound good rather than hear the truth. Much like religion.
No, it's because the Democrats routinely put people up on the ballot that are incapable of connecting at a basic level with people. They come off as robots or just assholes.
Well, I better not run because I'll just be a fucking asshole. I won't be a robot. I'll be
privileged assholes.
Because I'll be like, look, these are the facts. You can either like them or not, but this is the fact. Do you want to die? Do you want your grandchildren to live on a planet that will barely be able to?
But that's what I'm saying.
Lives?
Is even that politicians don't talk like that. Donald Trump does. Donald Trump won 2016 because he talks like that.
I'm just too rational to see what Donald Trump says and see that as connecting with anybody because it's all fucking bullshit. So people much rather prefer lies.
That's kind of the whole thing I was getting back to about with Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton could sell a ketchup popsicle to a woman in white gloves.
Yes, but at least on the surface of the person, there was good intention.
Yeah.
There's no good intentions on their side anymore.
Where's the intentions on the Democratic side to do any of that?
Bernie has good intentions. Elizabeth Warren has good intentions. I would even say AOC has good intentions.
Well, off air, I'll tell you some stories about Bernie Sanders behind the scenes, but it's I just don't see it.
Who do you want to be? Who do you want the Democratic nominee to be?
No one that's a front runner at this point. I'm hoping somebody else comes out and
it's not going to happen.
You don't think so?
No. You're looking at whoever's in there now is going to be one of the nominees. And it's probably going to be one of the front runners, most likely. So what is there to worry about? And I mean, it's fine because I'll just be proven right. I've been saying since November 8th of 2018, November 8th of 2016, that this is just the beginning of an 8-year term for Donald Trump.
Oh yeah, and I've been saying that since the day he was elected.
And you can't tell me that yes, people have been saying about the recession. You cannot tell me that this next recession, because there's always a next one, is not going to be worse. You can't tell me it's not going to be worse. It's going to be worse.
It probably would be, because we haven't done anything to correct the issues from the last one.
No, in fact, we're reversing the things we did do to correct the past issues.
And you're right. It probably will be one of the front runners, but there's I can't say the guy's name, but he's the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, Pete Buttigieg.
Oh yeah, he was on Bill Maher last week.
Oh, was he?
Yeah,
I haven't seen it.
No, I like him. He has no chance.
He has no chance.
For two reasons: one, no one can pronounce his last name, and two, he's gay. Yep.
Well, that and three, no mayor has ever been elected president.
Yeah, that's less important because no reality TV star's ever been elected president.
And the more, and he is kind of a front runner, but the more granted his legislative history is not all that great, but the more I see him and the more I hear him talk, I kind of like Beto O'Rourke.
Up until these two problems with Beto O'Rourke that I have personally.
One, he legislated as a Republican for his entire career
until he ran in 2018. And what does it say about a man who can't beat Ted Cruz, whose own fucking family can't stand him?
In Texas, but it
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
I know
he's still white.
I know
he's not gay.
And the same thing. The Democrats are talking about trotting out the lady that lost in Georgia. Also, what's her name?
I don't know her name. I know who you're talking about though.
But anyway, they're talking about her running for president. I kind of felt the same way.
I think right now the Democrats are just saying any one of us can fucking win. I think they're going down a rabbit hole that is Donald Trump cannot possibly win again because he's so bad.
But he's going to.
That's my fear is that they're not gonna go with the best choice. They're just gonna go with whatever choice is hot that week.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, and I think out of the field, Joe Biden probably has a better chance of beating him than anyone else. But I don't even think he can.
I don't either. But I think
it's very hard to beat a sitting president.
This is where Biden has a small advantage. Because Donald Trump, his strength is in his campaign and how he spins his debates.
Yeah.
And how he acts in his debates. Because even though rational people would see that Hillary may have won a couple of those debates, the vast majority of America saw it as she didn't.
No, I know.
But Biden could put him on edge. Because Biden will be able to throw back some of that. I don't even know how to describe it.
I know what you're talking
about. Yeah. He has the backbone to stand up against the lies and call him out and put him on the offense or the defensive rather than the offensive.
Because
he does terrible when he's on the defense.
Hillary tried.
She tried.
She came off as unauthentic.
Yeah, but Biden wouldn't because Biden's just got that type of personality. And that's if you can do that. If you can keep Trump on the defensive through the entire campaign, he could be beaten.
But they won't. The problem is he's months and months ahead of.
He started campaigning the day after he was sworn.
So he definitely has a huge head start already. But anyway, let's round this all back to marijuana.
Well, I mean, it all boils down to the same thing. Basically, our representatives are not representing us.
Yes, but I was kind of let me get to this one last point I want to make on the marijuana industry.
Yeah.
So currently, I don't know if you know this or not. Actually, I think you should because I think we talked about it before on here. That banks and credit unions are federally prohibited from handling or lending money to businesses associated with the marijuana industry. Right. So just last month, the U.S. House Financial Services Committee voted 45-15 to remove that prohibition and would allow lenders to loan to those businesses, which could have a huge impact.
Right. They could have just done the same thing and just legalized it federally, but,
That's a bigger bigger issue to try to pay. Because here's the thing is that, so from what I was reading about this, I don't remember the bill number. I should have wrote it down, but they expect it to pass the full House when it comes up for a vote. It's probably not. It probably won't even get a vote in the Senate, unfortunately.
Right.
And if it did, it's not entirely certain if President Trump would even sign it into law.
He won't.
I don't know, because you can make that business argument with him. So I don't know.
You could, but he still tends to vote with, when it comes to those types of things, he's very straight in line. Pence will be guiding that decision.
I think,
because I don't think he cares. I really don't. If you ask him as a person whether he thinks weed should be legal, he'd probably say, I don't care. Yeah, fuck it.
I'm pretty sure he has before he said it should be legal.
He has, but he said a lot of things before. I'm just saying. He said gay marriage should be fine too, and then he runs for president and he's totally against it. But I think just as a person, not speaking as a president, not having any obligation, not that he really does. What he does, he doesn't really care. When it comes to real policy, he just follows the line. That's where Pence has some power.
Well, and that's kind of what I was getting at. Was I think if
Pence is totally against it.
So. Oh, of course, I think if it like narrowly passed the Senate, then I could see that him possibly vetoing it.
Right.
I think if it overwhelmingly passed the House and Senate, I think he would sign it.
How by what margin did weed become legal and recreational weed become legal in Michigan?
I want to say like 15 points.
And that's not narrow.
No, it was a very wide margin.
So, but that hasn't stopped Republican counties from banning it in their county. You see my point?
Oh, I know.
So, well, I don't think it's really about the margins. I think it's about who's in power.
Hold on one second, though, because yes, there's been over 400 cities in townships that have banned it pretty much in for sale in their jurisdiction. Especially with like F.A.M.E. When F.A.M.E. did what they did last week.
That shocked me.
They said they did it because they don't know how the licensing process is going to work right now.
Well, banning a second, they're not going to find out.
But that's what I'm saying, though, is how many of these areas
will
change their mind.
Right.
Once everything becomes more clear.
And that's fair enough, but the fact that they have to... I don't understand what the point is then. Is it just a gesture? Is it what is it to ban it in their county before they even know all the facts?
Yeah.
And especially if they're willing to accept the possibility.
Because I guess you can look at it the other way and say we're banning it because we don't know all the facts. But
it's not going. Nothing's going to happen until you know the facts anyway. So what difference does it make? Why do you have to create this thing?
But I think that number, that 400 number, will be drastically reduced 6 months after all the licensing starts going through. And I guess my other question is, I've never been to a dispensary. Is it a cash and carry kind of place, or?
My dad has a medical card. I'd have to ask him. I've never been in one either because unless you have a card, you can't go in one.
Yeah.
I've gone with him to the dispensary.
Are you able to pay with a credit card, or?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm going to assume no, but I can't.
So you think it'd be cash and carry?
I think it's cash and carry. Yes.
Okay.
I'm almost 100% sure. He was the one who texted me a while ago. I can ask him.
That's not the big deal.
It's not. It's not. But
how about this? We'll find out and we'll discuss it on the next episode of Life in General.
Okay. Well, hopefully it'll just be a little blurb at the beginning.
Yes.
I don't want to go over this again.
No, we're not going to go over all this
until the other stuff comes into something.
But I'm sure we'll touch on it again eventually.
Oh yeah, like you said, it's one of our most talked about things.
So anyway, anything else to add though, there, Ian?
Just truth is truth, whether it's fed to you in a fun way, or a direct way, or an unpleasant way. The truth is the truth.
It is, but it's easier to swallow if it's in a more pleasant form.
I understand that.
I'll say that.
I'm not that way. To me, it's the truth.
A vast majority of people are.
99.99%. You're right. But I just want truth. That's all I seek. My entire existence is strictly to find truth. I don't care about anything else.
I know I've said it 100 times to you before, and I've been saying it for years. That I learned a long time ago. I can say pretty much whatever I want to somebody as long as I'm smiling when I say it. Because but it's the same thing with politicians. That's how Donald Trump wins an election.
Yeah.
That's why he's.
I don't know if he really ever smiled when he said his stuff. He just said things that the wrong people like to hear.
Yeah, well,
that's all.
I don't know. Well, anyway,
I think you should have to pass an IQ test to vote. I really hate to say that because
you can't.
I know because unfortunately it would.
Potentially. First off, IQ tests are very subjective.
Yes, they are. Yes,
very subjective. So that would equate to a poll tax, basically.
I'm gonna find somebody who like writes tests and see if he can just create a test that can determine your ability to accept or understand facts. Like on a scale. Find a scale of, because I'm just looking at like. Well, our last or 2 episodes ago we did flat earthers.
Yeah.
Those are people who have the inability to recognize facts as they are.
Well, that's different though, because I think you can look at things different ways, and because of your skepticism of the people that you perceive that are putting out the information can color your opinion of that information.
True, but facts are facts. Whether it's a shady person saying it or a very trustworthy person.
It's not.
Truth is truth.
It's not. So if I told you something that sounded almost unbelievable, and then Donald Trump told you the same thing, would you be more likely to believe it from me or from Donald Trump? That's why.
Well, you're asking the wrong person, because ultimately I would need to know that it's true regardless. And considering that you and I do have certain different
and when I say me, I mean
generic person.
Generic, someone that you generally would see as a trustworthy source.
I would say,
and that's why I said that the person delivering the message,
Donald Trump, would not color my acceptance of the fact that you said it.
Because it would me.
It wouldn't me. Because if you say gravity is going to make this hit the floor...
I'm not talking about something that's obviously believable. I'm saying something...
Oh, if it's not obvious, then I'm not going to believe either one of you until I can quantify it, period. Okay. So it doesn't matter. I want truth. Truth has... There's pathways to truth.
Generally, people will believe something from someone that they deem more trustworthy than someone else. Damn it, there was something else I was going to touch on real quick, but I don't remember what the fuck it was. Oh, well. Any questions or comments, you can email us at lifeingeneralpod@gmail.com. Check us out on Twitter and Facebook and Podbean and iTunes and this and that and somewhere else.
And when you're done listening to this episode, this is why we don't do political shows very often.
Hey, I had fun doing this.
No, this was good. It actually cleared my sinuses a little bit.
There you go.
Weirdly enough.
All right. Well, that's it. Until next time.
Talk to y'all later.
Peace.
Playing my role, let me tell you about it. This shit right here, man, I'm about it. Only real niggas reside around me. Yo, lady, drop a guard around me. Dip like I know you can, bitch. Show me the ropes like we in the ring. Got you two cobras, you wanna hang. Shoulder to shoulder, the niggas basic. You know I won't lie. You know that I ain't for that fuck shit. You niggas alright, but I'm way better and she love it. Know that y'all sick as fuck. Here go this tissue, bro. We taking the dub, hoping you get you some. This hit like a pick me up. She taking my drugs. Know they see the sign. That's some dollar signs. Know they sick as fuck. Know they sick as fuck. Tell them get well soon. Tell them get well soon. Know you sick as fuck. Get well soon.